now looking up at the Saints and Rams in the conference. Somehow, though, Aaron Rodgers not affected by it, saying, quote, "I feel good about our team. I feel good about where we're at mentally." The old mental game. Brian Westbrook back with us. Brian, how much pressure is on the Packers to win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers this season?
You know, Jenna, this is going to sound weird, but I don't think there's much pressure on the Packers to win the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I actually think it's much more pressure on Aaron Rodgers to win a Super Bowl with the Packers, line up the people that they have on their team. In order to be in the upper echelon of when you talk about the best quarterbacks ever, you got to have multiple rings. And at this point, Aaron Rodgers only has one. And when you think about what the Packers did in the draft and what they did at the trade deadline, basically standing pat, not giving any help on the offense or the defensive side of the ball at the trade deadline, they're saying, you know what, we're not going to put pressure to try to win now. We're still going to conserve our draft picks. We're going to conserve our money, and we're going to try to build for the future at some point when Aaron Rodgers leaves. So to me, there's not a bunch of pressure on the Packers. There's much more pressure on Aaron Rodgers to solidify his legacy as one of the best quarterbacks that has ever played this game.
That's interesting.
Yeah, B, it should be a lot, man. I'm sorry, but it seems like it feels like if they don't win the Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers, the Aaron Rodgers-Packers relationship has run its course. Like, we got it. It's time for us to admit it. I said it before the season. I feel like it was a waste of talent. And you just talked about it. When you talk about being at the upper echelon of the pack, when you talk about the quarterbacks, the greatest of all time, you got to look at multiple Super Bowls. And for me, the organization hasn't done anything over the last 10 years to help this guy out. Again, this year in the draft, they draft a quarterback in the first round. Like, this makes no sense to me. When you think about Aaron Rodgers, and there was one point in time when we were talking about him going down as the greatest quarterback of all time, and he has one Super Bowl, I mean, man, that's a waste of talent. This relationship has run its course if they don't win this Super Bowl this year. Now, Aaron Rodgers, like, a lot of it is on him as well. But the Packers, they need to do a good job of finishing the season strong if they want to maintain this relationship, Nick.
So I think that you're both right in this regard. I think there's massive pressure on Aaron Rodgers every year that's left of what's left of his prime because he is a victim of his own talent and ability. If he does finish his career with one Super Bowl win and one appearance, I think people will say that's an underachievement. I know that's unfair, but I think that's how good of a player he is. But where Brian, I agree with him 1,000%, you took the words out of my mouth, is the Packers clearly don't look at this year as win now, must win, anything like it. Look at the other teams in the NFC, the other contenders, what they've done in the last 18 months. The Los Angeles Rams trade a boatload of picks for Jalen Ramsey, win right now. The Cardinals trade for DeAndre Hopkins. The Seattle Seahawks trade midseason for Carlos Dunlap, trade right before the season for Jamal Adams. Those teams are telling the world, we think we can win this moment. The Bucs, obviously. They sign Tom Brady. They trade up in the draft to get him protection. They sign Antonio Brown. They sign Gronk. Packers did nothing. They traded up to draft a player who is not even currently their backup quarterback. They're getting nothing from their second-round pick, nothing from their third-round pick. They made no moves at the deadline. They made no substantial additions in free agency. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year. And this offseason, what did they do? They went out and they stayed aggressive. They brought in Le'Veon Bell, right at the deadline. They draft a guy to help Mahomes and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They bring everybody back, find a way to work the money with Sammy Watkins, Chris Jones. They do all these things because we're trying to win this moment. The Steelers last year, when they lost their quarterback for the year, they still traded a pick to bring in Minkah Fitzpatrick because they're always trying to win. The Ravens signed Calais Campbell, among other people. I mean, I'm running out of teams. Everyone seems like they're trying to win right now that thinks they have a quarterback that can do it, except for the Packers. And so I think there's immense pressure on Aaron. I don't think the franchise feels like there's pressure on them because they have not acted accordingly.
But I'm going to ask Brian. Brian, do you think his legacy would move up a tier? Because it feels like he's like right there. To me, it's almost analogous to like Kevin Durant. Like the GOAT conversation is probably a little bit out of your reach, but you're right there. And whether or not you win a ring, like I don't count Super Bowl appearances, no offense, as like a big deal. You either win it or you don't. Like, oh, Russ got to a Super Bowl that he should have won and lost it. Does anyone like, oh, he got to the, I don't know. I just don't care. Brees has got one ring. He's got one ring. I don't know if he winning another one or not affects anyone's view of him unless you see it differently.
Well, it absolutely affects people's
I know you
view.
love
And
appearances,
really the
Nick.
view that you're talking about is when you compare it to the best of the best. When you compare it to Peyton Manning, and when you compare it to Tom Brady, that's the comparison that you're talking about. You really can have the same conversation about Drew Brees. You won one Super Bowl. You're one of the best quarterbacks that the game has ever seen, and you've only won one. Goodness for, if the Chiefs actually only win one Super Bowl, the one that they won last year,
it's a
Nick
massive
Wright would
failure.
jump off the bridge.
It's a
it would be
massive
absolutely a failure.
Yep.
The same thing that I would say for Aaron Rodgers, one of the most talented quarterbacks that we've seen, the ability to run the football, the ability to throw the ball on the run, to only win one Super Bowl in his career, it would be a shame.
And Wilds, you're right. The GOAT discussion is out of reach for Rodgers, just like it is for Durant. But you can still climb the mountain. Like the Durant thing, right now he's neck and neck with Larry Bird. Can he pass him? Could he one day pass Kobe? For Rodgers, he's neck and neck with Drew Brees. Could he pass him? Could he pass John Elway? Could he potentially pass